you're here. I'm so glad SoulSearch came to Reno. It's been years. You're welcome. I have been looking here for years. So I want everybody to take a deep breath. And we're just going to get really present for a moment. Thank you. So I just want you to ground into the earth as best you can. And just breathe into your heart space for a moment. Just for today, we're going to be very present. And we're going to welcome in your ancestors and the ancestors of the earth. Go ahead and feel them. No matter what your relationship with your family, you are loved unconditionally by the grandmothers, by your ancestors. Go ahead and open your eyes. What do you recognize within your own family lineage, within yourself, that you carry, that you see continuing to get passed down within your family bloodline? Would anybody like to share?
I don't see it anymore, but I saw it because I feel it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very omnipresent. Damaging relationships with men.
Okay. Yeah. Unhealthy relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else like to share?
Addictions.
Addictions. Mm-hmm. Suicide, depression, anxiety. Who in the room has anxiety?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have a question. Could it be a gift that's passed down?
Absolutely.
That's what I was feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. Yes, absolutely. Yes, those, we carry the gifts of our ancestors in our family lineage and the unhealed wounds. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it's matriarchal strength.
Matriarchal
That's the
strength.
lineage.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Very strong.
Yeah. Yeah. And there were reasons they had to be strong. Mm-hmm. What about shame? Guilt? Anger? Loneliness? Grief? Sadness? Limiting behaviors, limiting thought patterns? Physical pain? Knee pain, back pain, headaches?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we don't realize nor understand that our parents are the way they are because they were raised a specific way, right? So have you ever wondered why you or your family behaves in a certain way? When you look back, your grandparents were raised a specific way. Your great-grandparents were raised a specific way. It goes back farther and farther and farther. Okay? And when there is something that has been left unhealed with a person, that unhealed wound continues to get passed down within the bloodline from one generation to the next until it's healed. Okay, so that's why when you could look at families or your own family, you will see things like addiction, abuse, unhealthy relationships, unhealthy boundaries, shame, guilt, knee pain, depression, anxiety. You are born with these unhealed wounds, and they can be turned on at any point in time. Okay? So you choose the family that you were born into. You chose your parents. You chose your lineage. And you come into the world with those gifts and the unhealed wounds, the unhealed traumas. So you might be feeling as if there's a weight that you're carrying, but you don't quite know what that is. Or you get triggered and angry really quick, but you aren't sure, like, oh, I've worked on this so much and I just can't find that peace within my heart that I'm like looking for and seeking. You might feel this sadness or this grief within you, but you aren't like, oh, why do I feel this way? Right? Some of you may look at your own family and go, yeah, well, my childhood was not very great. And that's why. But there's more reasons why. And so what happens with generational healing is we are carrying these traumas and the gifts, but the traumas, and they impact our lives. They affect how we feel emotionally. They affect how we think. They affect how we feel physically in our bodies, maybe even physical pain and ailments. It will affect us spiritually. These unhealed wounds will show up in your relationships, in your relationships with your family, in your intimate relationships, in the relationships with your children, in the relationships with your coworkers, your friends. These unhealed wounds will show up in the experiences and situations that you have in life. They will show up in how you perceive the world, how you think about yourself. And no matter what you or your family has experienced in your life or their life, no matter what, it can be healed. Talk about a relief, huh? And recognizing that what you're carrying and a lot of the things that you struggle with now and today and that you see your family struggling with isn't necessarily just yours. It is an ancestor's unhealed wound that is continuing to get passed down in your DNA, in the family lineage bloodline. And your ancestors invited you here today so that this can be changed, so that you can be free of the shame, the guilt, the anger, the unhealthy relationships, so that you can experience more of the gifts versus the pain, more of the strength, more of the joy and happiness, freedom and peace. So I remember when I was listening to the founder of Generational Healing, and I finally oh my gosh, this is why I feel the way I feel. I never felt accepted by my family. I felt like the black sheep. I'm sure many of you can relate. And I'm like, this is why I think this way. This is why I behave this way. Okay, I get this. And it was life altering for me just to recognize that it's not just me. There's not something wrong with me. That it's actually an ancestor's unhealed trauma that I've been carrying my whole life that's showing up in the world, within me, in how I'm showing up or not showing up. Generational healing was founded by my teacher who I've been mentoring with for the last decade, Deborah Sky King. She was entered into this world with her gifts open and is one of the most amazing beings I've ever met. She has trusted spirit impeccably. And when she is told to do something, she does. In 2008, she was invited by the ancestors of the earth to go to Guatemala and spend 40 days in the jungle, in the Patan jungle in Guatemala. The only thing she knew was the day she was supposed to be there and the location she was supposed to land in. She knew nothing else. And things worked out in the radio realm as they do. And she landed in Guatemala and was met by someone immediately and taken to the exact location she was supposed to be at. She trekked into the jungle and was in ceremony with ancient civilizations, with the ancestors, with elders, with the earth, doing what was asked. She was then called back to return to the location. She had no idea what was going to happen, what was transpiring. She was simply doing as she was asked by spirit, by the ancestors. And after the 4th year, after she completed the last ceremony in a Maya pyramid in the Guatemala jungle, the ancestors of the earth came forward and they gave her a vision of what the world could look like. Imagine that place that we all dream of, that place of peace and unity and love and joy and happiness, oneness, connected to earth and nature and all the elements, honoring and respecting one another and life itself. And the ancestors was here in this ceremonial center that they looked at her and they shared that in order for humanity to evolve, the ancestors of the earth themselves need healing. And they asked her if she would take this mission on into the world. And she said, yes, absolutely. 100%. Anything to help humanity and Gaia, the ancestors that she's had such a close relationship with her entire life. She took the work that they gifted her, known now as generational healing, into her own practice for years. And in 2015, she was given the go-ahead to teach. And I was part of that first class that went through the apprenticeship training. And so now I facilitate, teach generational healing. And it is life-changing. So imagine that one thing that you or your family is carrying, that you are struggling with, whether it's shame or anger or grief, unhealthy relationships, estrangement, self-acceptance, anger. You are carrying that pain of your ancestors, and your ancestors are seeking that healing. When you come to receive generational healing, there's nothing you need to do. There's nothing you need to know about your family or your lineage, because your ancestors do. Your ancestors know what needs to be healed. So when you come to receive generational healing, you simply lie down and be open to receiving the healing that your ancestors are asking for, or seeking to give to you, because their trauma is affecting you and your family. It's continued to get passed down. Most people, when they receive generational healing, they sit up and they feel so much lighter. They have more clarity. They look at me and they go, I feel different. I can't explain it, but it feels as if something left me. And they will go into their life without that pain and trauma that has been continuing to get passed down from their ancestor that shared. It is life-changing and life-altering. In fact, I've been facilitating and teaching for years, and traveling, sharing and speaking about generational healing, because I truly believe in the potential it has to heal humanity. Generational healing is an ancient healing technique from the Earth's ancestors. It is life-changing for you and for your family. I do teach generational healing and facilitate sessions, and it's always amazing. It's always exactly what you need. It's beautiful. And it's so honoring and sacred, and a blessing to be in the presence of the ancestors and the wisdom that they share, because there are so many things that they share that we have no idea about. When I first enrolled in the apprenticeship training, the 13 Mystical Wisdom Teachings apprenticeship training with the founder of Generational Healing, I had already been studying a lot, doing a lot of the spiritual work that we do to evolve, to heal, to live a better life. I was a single mom, depressed, anxious, low self-worth, lack of confidence, didn't trust myself, self-doubt, out of the roof. I was in this like survival mode of just trying to get through every single day. I'm sure some of you relate, or you've been there. And as I began to go through and listen to and experience the 13 life-changing spiritual initiations to awaken my spiritual gifts, I started noticing differences within myself, within my family. And this is back when people aren't talking about generational trauma and ancestral healing. But I'm feeling good. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm actually in my body and I can love my body. I feel more intuitive. I feel more connected. Like boom, boom, boom. Productive, not in my head. And my son, who's 25 now, he was 15 at the time. I first went through the 13 mystical wisdom teachings. And he came up to me and he gave me a hug and a kiss on the forehead. And he looked at me and he said, "Thank you, Mom, for the work that you're doing." Not because he knew what I was doing, but because he felt it. He felt it within his cells, within his bones, within his being, and how the family dynamics altered and shifted. I grew up on a ranch in Montana. My dad was he's amazing, and I love him, and I always know he loves me. He'd do anything for anyone, and yet he never shared those words, "I love you." He never spoke those out loud, because that's not how he was raised. He showed it versus saying it. And I remember standing there, and I'm in the 13 wisdom teachings, and my son has just shared with me, like, "Thank you, Mom. Thank you for what you're doing." I feel it. I feel the shift. And my dad's standing there, and he looks at me, and he's like, "Shortening," calls me Shortening. Says, "Shortening, I love you." And my jaw probably hit the ground. Because that was the first time I remember him ever using those words out loud. He calls me every week now and tells me that before he hangs up. Both of my adult children have thanked me for the healing work that I have done for the lineage, for our ancestors, because their lives, my grandchildren's lives, get to be different. They don't have to carry the burden and the weight that they've been carrying there, that you've been carrying. When I first facilitated generational healing, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But what was so beautiful is the 13 mystical wisdom teachings all came together. And suddenly I was in a multidimensional framework with an ancestor of someone receiving generational healing in front of me. And he was sharing his story of his life on earth and the pain that he and his family experienced that was impacting and affecting her in her life. And as I'm sharing this, the woman receiving generational healing was crying because it related so much to what she was experiencing at that time. And me, I have no idea. I'm just sharing what her ancestor is sharing. And as I'm facilitating this healing for her ancestor, all of a sudden there was a shift. And the ancestor looked at me and thanked me for his healing. It was one of the most humbling, rewarding experiences I had ever had. I had tears streaming down my face, and I knew in that moment that generational healing was my purpose to share in the world. Because it does have the potential to heal humanity. Life has not always been the way it appears to be right now. There have been times where we as humans connect with nature and life and the elements. We honor those that have passed, the ancestors and the earth and our breath. Generational healing does have the potential to heal humanity and you and your family. One session is life-changing. Multiple sessions are life-changing. And I invite you to experience it for yourself, to receive healing for you, for your family, for your ancestors. Because you get to have the life that you want. You get to experience and express who you are, truly are. And we get to leave those gifts for our children, for our future children, future grandchildren, generations to come. I facilitate both in-person generational healing in Reno, and I facilitate distance generational healing as well. So wherever you are on the planet, I connect with your ancestors and you can receive a healing. And of course, I teach as well. And for those of you that are really ready to awaken your spiritual gifts and heal your family's trauma and become empowered, I invite you to explore the 13 mystical wisdom teachings, the apprenticeship training. And I teach 7-day generational healing certification trainings here in Reno as well. The prerequisite is the 13 mystical wisdom teachings. And it will prepare you to have a dialogue and a conversation in multidimensional realms. It'll awaken your spiritual gifts beyond what you've already experienced and you already know. And you will heal your family and your lineage. I see things shift and change countless, hundreds, and thousands of times. Life doesn't have to be a struggle. You don't have to experience things that you're experiencing right now, whether that's emotional, mental, physical, or disconnection from spirit. Does anybody have any questions? Mm-hmm. Yes.
Can you be the start of that trauma?
That, I would say, probably started before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But there was something that got turned on. It can be healed. So even if you feel like you are the start of it, it can be healed. Does that help? Mm-hmm. Okay. Other questions? So again, I was trained with it. So you go through the apprenticeship training and learn how to facilitate generational healing if you want to facilitate. But just seeing me for generational healing session, you'll come in, you'll lie down on a massage table, and you just simply, you get to receive. Like imagine, how many people just allow themselves to relax and receive? Instead of like, I've got to figure it out, you just relax and receive. And the trained generational healer, because I do train, there are other generational healers in the area and around, she will connect with one of your ancestors that is seeking healing and have a conversation with him or her. And as that's happening, they're also offering that healing the way that the ancestors have asked for that. So it's super easy, very easy. And then you'll sit up and we have a conversation. Your ancestors receive that healing and most likely you'll be, wow, that Sounds like me. In fact, I had a session yesterday. I'm offering mini sessions here at SoulSearch. Thank you, Tangela, for SoulSearch. I'm offering mini sessions here. And a woman sat up yesterday and she looked at me. She says, nobody could have known that except my mother. I said, well, this is what your ancestor shared. I'm not with you. I'm not doing a reading. I'm facilitating a healing, a life-altering healing. But yeah, most people are just like, yeah, I feel so different. Even people that do not know their parents, they were adopted, or their parents were adopted, or their grandparents were adopted. I actually had a client, she's like, I'm adopted. I don't know my family lineage. I facilitated generational healing with her. And she looks at me afterwards, after the session's complete. She says, now I understand all of it. She left. She said, I have been wanting to organize this room for years. She says, I went home and I organized it. It was beautiful. Like I had so much more energy and clarity and vision and purpose. She says, and I found my tribe. I found like-minded people. It's one thing I love about SoulSearch is that the beauty that community brings of being with like-minded people. She says, I found my people I like that I can connect with, and I can speak to spiritual things and talk about the earth and the healing and magic. She says, and I noticed differences in my son. I think he was 3 at the time. One day all of a sudden I get this message from her. And she's like, hey, Crystal, can I schedule my husband? She says, we're driving down the road. And he looked at me and said, yeah, I want to go see the lady that you saw that changed your life. And he did. And it was eye-opening for him in how he was feeling, what he was experiencing in his own life. And I messaged her later. She messaged me. She's like, oh my gosh, Crystal, thank you so much for facilitating generational healing with my husband. This just saved our relationship. I noticed differences in my son now too. People will sit up and they feel brighter, they feel more alive, they feel like there's a spark within them again. They feel hopeful, they feel clarity, direction, purpose, peace, and freedom. Any other questions? Yes.
2 questions. The healing is coming out of conversation with the ancestors.
Yeah.
Changing their DNA.
Yes.
And why does an ancestor need to know? Why can't they do it on their
You're carrying within your DNA. Those that unhealed pain and suffering continues to be within your blood. Just like the dance, right? I don't know. Redheads, okay? We can look at redheads. Red hair because the parents are good. I have medium because my parents have medium. It's in the genetic. And so those unhealed traumas are impacting you, affecting you emotionally, mentally, physically, almost spiritually. So not only is the ancestors receiving the pain that you do as well. So if it released from you, so that you get to express and experience it. Because
Yeah, if you're doing news, it's fine.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it.
And that is kind of part of the role, like how is
Yep. Nope. It's the Ancestral, and it's what they've designed for the evolution of humanity. So are you the conduit? Or are you the doer?
I've got to wrap up, but it's it's all, yeah, right. But I do have to wrap up because I know there's another speaker. So I just want to thank each and every one of you for coming and listening and honoring your ancestors today. So thank you.
Yeah.